Hello, beautiful people. I'm elated. I'm so happy that Nichole London is here with me today, and you get to witness what it is, the calling in new dimensions and new aspects. I've met Nichole online, or better, I would say, I felt her presence, her wisdom, her magic on the waves of the internet, and felt the calling to have a conversation with her about healing and healing journey and rituals and the wisdom of the feminine and so much more that will unfold. So Nichole is a mentor in the art of ritual. She is a healer, a medicine woman, a wise woman, and I am so grateful for your presence and for having this conversation here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Homaya. I really appreciate being here. Thank you for listening to the call as I did, as I heard your call the day before it came through, even though I didn't know it was you at the time. So thank you so much for both of us listening to the conversation that wants to be had.
Yeah, exactly. When things are written and composed in the higher heavens, it is for us to be attentive. I remember reading some of your posts and feeling the honesty, the alignment, your truth as you're sharing your journey. So before we dive into the journey, your journey of healing and your vision about healing, would you mind sharing a little bit? What is it that you are engaged with when we're mentioning the word ritual and somatic experience? Like, can you take us a little bit behind the scene to feel you?
Yeah. Well, ritual for me began as an intentional practice of being with myself. And in my younger years, that might have looked like setting candles on the altar of my room surrounding my space. And in the now moment, I'd say it is about every practice I do and every move I make, every action I take, when done as an act of ritual, engages my perception and all of my sensory self to engage the world with open eyes, with my presence, and with my practices embedding in my world through my body. So, ritual to me means through the body. It's an act of expression, a place where my divinity and my human get to come together to create union.
Yeah, so powerful. Because what we do know about rituals and ceremonies is that the power of the collective is so essential for the level of energy and the transformation that can occur in a ritual, right? And most of the rituals that are being done in these modern days, I'm laughing because it's like men going for a football game,
Mm-hmm.
people in a football game, they are running a very similar frequency to a ritual, but rather the intention and the
Mm-hmm.
quality, the prayer is so different.
Yeah, I
So
think we've lost the act of devotion in our practices. And I think that's what I'm stirring up within myself over the last couple decades. And then also asking the collective, like, what does it mean to meet ritual in a modern era that allows us to go across timelines, across belief systems, across languages to say, like, how do we encounter the divine and ourselves in our everyday practices. Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like to be that present? What does it look like and feel like to listen that deeply? Because
Yeah.
ritual to me is also an act of listening. It helps me pivot and negotiate the space around me because I'm aware of the space around me. And then engaging in those practices helps me listen deeper with the earth or with people or with the energy. It allows me to open my heart and to listen with more than just my ears, to listen with my entire self, my being, and my energy field. And I think slowing us down enough to practice gives us the space to listen. And I think that listening comes with spaciousness.
Mm.
And that slowing down part of ritual helps us to let the body be with us instead of disassociating from the body. I think the gift of the body is its slowness. It needs time for integration. It needs time for listening. It needs time to adjust itself and change for change.
Hmm. It's interesting because when I hear you speaking now, I understand that in your vision of ritual and ceremonial experiences is this merging of the heaviness and slowness
Mm-hmm.
of the body as an integration space and the vastness, the intensity, the fast of light speed
Mm-hmm.
of the divine, of the higher presence, and creating a capsule where those two are merging together. There's like an intentional exchange that is happening.
Yes, exactly. And it feels like the space of the heart is the bridge. Like when I've been working with people, places, things over the last 20 years, the mergence of the divinity within us coming through the body tends to create this bridge at the heart where expression comes through. And so I've been playing and practicing with like, what does that look like in other people as well as what does it look like within me so that we can start to see many, many facets of how it functions in our third dimensional world while affecting all of the other dimensional spaces.
Yeah. So, do you invite other people for rituals these days? Would you?
Yes, we just finished a ritual at the ocean and we did a singing ritual with resonating the body and resonating our voices, as well as doing a land offering on the ocean side after the singing to bring up what's already there. The beautiful part, we created this earth mandala land offering where each person goes on a medicine walk in silence to just listen to the earth after we sang and resonated through the bunkers. And as we were moving and listening, people would gather items and we would create this beautiful mandala. But the practice of it and what it brings up for a lot of people is that all each one of us were doing was being in a deep listening space, listening to the land and listening to our yeses and our nos for what wanted to come along. And then we brought it to the circle and landed it down. But it was in our collective doing that that created this gorgeous mandala that we ended up having at the end as an offering back to the land itself. And in doing that, I think it's really beautiful to think of how that looks like in our daily life. Because if we're all doing our deep listening, moving through the world in that amount of presence, and then we're bringing our part to the table, then over time and collectively, we begin to create these beautiful pictures of devotion and practice and care for ourselves and for the places that we are.
Mm.
It's one of my favorite ones that we've done very recently.
Mm. Nichole, I want to go deeper with you, but I am concerned because suddenly all like the internet collapsed. I don't know if you have seen that I've disappeared for a moment.
Yeah, I saw you disappear.
Well, my image. Load
Mm-hmm.
up read for all. I have no idea why it moves like that. Okay, let's just pray that that would work well. and that they can take care of that. They will need to match the recording. It's like it divided itself into two recordings.
Hmm.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so let's go from there. So for you, this experience of deep listening and this experience of deep connection to layers of the physical dimension, so the body and the earth and different layers that comes there, and the layers of the upper realm, the astral, the higher self, probably light beings that are being present on this journey in those rituals. Is that for you the source where the healing is happening, or how do you combine healing and rituals? What is happening there for you?
Well, I have a five-fold path for people to meet me. So I let people meet me where they are. So I have a physical practice in Tacoma, Washington called the Loving Well. And so some people show up to me in their bodies, like very physical. They want to come and heal their physical bodies. So I'm a rehabilitation specialist and I work with the medical rehabilitation part of the physical world. So there's a gateway for the body to enter as it is, if that's the gate in which they could meet me. Then there's the energy gate where people can come and meet me in their energy field. So we might do energy cleansing either online or in person, or home cleansings, or working with the system and the energy of the body to reveal what's needed and do the excavation of the energy body to see what's there, and the emotional body mapping. So there's the body, there's the energy field, there's the mind. So I do my coaching and strategic planning piece. So I work with people in their mindscape when they are in that realm and they can meet me there. Or I work with science and ritual, and those are the other two pieces. Science being the way that we experiment to come to know our own truth and program and deprogram all of the places that have been gifted to us in wherever place, culture, language, body that we've been gifted in, and really understand, like, is this programming within me mine, or is it something that I've adopted subconsciously or consciously? And then how do we create experimentation so that we can come to know what's true for us now in the now moment? So we can do that through experimentation. So people who are not connected to their spiritual realm, but really are connected to wanting to uncover the truth of themselves, can meet me there. And then ritual is the place where I merge spirituality, the body, and all of these other pieces. So when people are ready for ritual, when they're ready to ask the questions between their spirit body, their physical body, the energy body, the practicing body, the ritual body, that's when we start to merge those pieces together and we start to create a more complex model of listening for themselves. So oftentimes over the last 20 years, I've had people meet me in one of those ways. They're coming to me to like work with their mind, with their body, their spirit, their energy, or they're ready to utilize my academy, my ritual academy that I have to walk them through a year of practice and to see how it moves for them. Because what I'd like to do with each individual person, even within my academy, is that I don't teach belief systems or traditional ways of doing ritual. What I do is teach people ingredients of ritual so that they can listen to how ritual wants to come through them. So they get to practice with all of these tools and all of these concepts and ways of being. And then they say, like, this is the one that resonates with my physical body. And how do I bring that forward? So they learn the art of self-trust. They learn the art of deep listening. They learn the art of sovereignty and how to like notice where they've externalized the inner authority and to call back their power within them and then activate all of those pieces from within.
So when you look at ingredients, what type of ingredients do you look at?
Well, if we just like go out of the the view of just a simple ritual, we walk through how do you step into a space, recognize the space for what it is, see you within the context of that space, meet the space in between, ask it permission to be there and open and see if the space is willing to participate in whatever it is that you're creating. And that could be going to a party, that could be going to a dinner, that could be creating a ceremony, right? But the art of like listening into the space itself, step one. Then stepping into the space and asking, how do we move energy? So the next thing would be like, how do we cleanse and open the space to receive us and to create the container for which we are meant to organize within the energy that is there? And then from there, we set the intention. That version of the intention is like, how do we open up the intention of what wants to come through? How do we invite along any beings, any ritual items or people that would come together? And then from there, we create and cast the circle for exactly what its intention is. And then from there, we move it and we ask it to work us as we are holding it. And then from there, we seal that space and that intention. And then we cleanse that body again, and then we dismantle and cleanse again. So that's like one way of that's like a simple ritual, basic outline for how we walk into any of it. But that's how we do the deep listening practices. So those ingredients can be done in a candle ritual, or it can be done in a medicine journey, or it could be done in a land offering. But those basic steps, we listen into the space in which we are and what wants to move.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it brings me, like, I wonder when I listen to you, how is the guidance that you feel that you can bring and that is happening in your auric field, in your offering, and so on, to both use the body, the heavy senses, the earth, the elements, objects, and so on, while actually, for the healing to happen, there's a state of consciousness that is being transformed, that is being cleared and elevated. Do you feel, when you look at your own healing journey, do you feel that you could create a conscious link between the elements of the rituals, the heavy senses, what you call body, somatic experience, and elevated state of consciousness? Do you feel that you were aware of how those links were created as you were going through your healing journey?
Yeah, I think from a very young age, when I was 4, I remember seeing light come out of my hands. And I remember being like, what are these for? Like asking that question, right? And then as I got into my teenage years, I had a devotional practice of prayer. And I had a really rough childhood. And so the leaning into that divine presence helped me to do that listening and observation from a really deep place from within me. And I think also a cosmic place, so that I can walk the human path while being connected to the divine. So I think there was a link there in my suffering that helped to open the perception of that third eye, or the observing self, to witness what was happening in the humans around me while holding compassion for the human experience itself. And then as I moved forward, I began my body healing journey around 19 years old. And so I went to massage therapy school. I went and got my medical certification. I worked in hospitals to do my internship and to listen on all of these different layers. And I've gotten to work with people in every layer of pain, body, and the physical. And so the body actually was one of my greatest teachers for how it came through the body. So my between 20 and 29, that decade of initiation was listening to the body and how the emotions came through the body, and then what that looked like in the physical, how it showed up. And I started to experiment with different practices and started to listening to how the emotions would show up in every single person's body the same way. So I started mapping it. I started calling it emotional body mapping. And this is before I knew it was a thing, but I was listening in that realm. So I started with the emotional body and the physical body. And then as I grew in deep into my practice, my 29th year was an initiation year for me. It was the year that I had my healing center for 4 years. By that point, my mother had passed away at 25, and I had opened this space called Nurture Healing Center. And inside of that space, I had gone to Burning Man. That year was called Rites of Passage at Burning Man. I ended up picking up a fungal spore while doing yoga on the earth. And I got super sick for 2 years. And I had to fight for my life. And over that 2-year period, it was when all of the stuff started waking up within me. It's like my magic that I had tucked down deep inside because it wasn't acceptable to be in that type of potency in my own power in the world started to like bubble to the surface. And I was throwing up every single day. I was purging for 2 straight years. And I had to decrease all of my output, and I had to increase that internal healing mechanism. As I listened to what it was being said to me, people started to like bring their children to me and be like, I don't know why I need to bring them to you instead of taking them here. Or people would show up and say like, I haven't cried in a long time and I was told you help people cry. It's like my physical practice turned in all of a sudden to this energetic and spiritual practice because I was so leaned back in my physical body that my physical body's overexertion started to like lean back, and that spiritual warrior within me came through, and all of my teachers started to show up and line up. And every person who came through, the actual teachers in my lineage of the work that I started to do with, I had my first vision quest. And then I went into eco-psychology practices. And then I started working with tribes, the Tene people and the Navajo. I started working with the Andean cosmology and my teachers in Peru. We started to merge all of these different practices, and it started to teach me what was coming up because I was so resistant to allowing that part of my magic to come back online.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because I had grown up in a religious area. And so the part of my magic that I knew was so potent, and I'd experienced miraculous healing when I was 14 and all these different things, I didn't know where to place it because it didn't belong in the very small container of the place that I lived in. And so to me, it felt scary to bring that forward because it would be demonized. And I knew it would be because it started to be. And so as I started to listen and I started to just trust what was moving through me, the next teacher would show and reveal themselves. And then the next one would reveal themselves. And each one was growing me into my capacity to hold my truth, my power, my reality. And then it also ushered to me the people in which I was meant to meet along that pathway to support in their unlocking their journey. So the physical was the unlocking in my body. And that was the decade of physical unlocking. It started in that practice, deep purging, deep acceptance, forgiveness, walking myself through new practices, immersions in the Andean mountains and sacred sites all over the world. They started to unlock me. And as I opened myself and my vulnerability and my heart to the reality of my presence here, that is when I started to meet people on the frequencies that I was opening myself to. So it became that deep mirror reflection of like, as deep as I'm willing to go is as deep as I can hold the space in which people are moving through.
Yeah. I love hearing that. And, you know, I do remember that in our short conversation, I, I do remember you mentioning archetypes, that you're creating like a tarot deck of archetypes or something like that. Am I
Yes,
correct?
I'm creating an oracle deck right now called my Cosmic Ritual Oracle. And it's every archetype I've ever met along my journey that has supported and healed a part of me. And the very first one that I met was we were doing an alter ego meditation. I think I was 29-ish. And I remember seeing this woman dance through the shadows, and she would go in and she'd pick up light and she'd pull the light up and she'd dance it back out, and the shadows couldn't adhere to her, and she would move it out into the space. And I was like, what is your name? And she told me that her name was Serafina, and I'd never heard that name before in my life. And I was like, tell me more about you. So over the next couple of years, she began working me, and her presence and her imagery in my mind started metamorphosing in different circles. Like, I remember I had this one circle I was holding, and I started coughing a lot, and I saw her wings break out of her back body. And then she started to gather tools and have different healing tools around her belt. And she has actually become my traveler. So when I do soul retrieval or when I journey on behalf of someone, she's usually the one within me that is traveling. And so each one of these little medicine archetypes has populated through my system, has then become a character inside of this deck and this oracle. And so some of the tools and the archetypes that have really supported me, I've given them a space to come to life, so that they can teach what I've learned from them to the collective.
So beautiful. I hear when you were sharing your journey, your healing journey, I could hear different archetypes, probably not by the name that you've experienced them, but I could see the witch, I could see the priestess, I could see the medicine woman, I could see different archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
As we are now in the conversation around healing and allowing people, I feel that one of the beautiful things that can, a ripple effect of this conversation is that those who are listening will stop putting healing and healing journeys in closed period of time in their life and would be willing to walk in their healing.
Yes. I think when we can open to that as a part of the way that we exist on this plane, is to walk with our body, which is the body is the one walking through its timeline, right? While the divinity within us gets to experience and express through that body. So that consistent conversation that's happening from our baby self till we are given back to the earth, that timeline requires a level of conversation the entire time. And I think that the healing journey is that conversation. And the more present we can become to that conversation, the deeper we can witness the multidimensional experience of living whole within our systems, to be whole within our divinity and our body, and how those things can merge and express in a very potent and powerful way, and can affect change in the co-creation of what we are creating here.
And Nichole, what would be your vision, your definition on the wounded healer as an archetype? Because it needs a lot of strength and resilience, even I would say, to fight for 2 years, or to go through all the different situations in your life where you were redefining light in body. Like you had so many initiations.
So many. I've had dozens and dozens of decades. And I think the ones of us that are meant to hold space for that initiatory process for other people, we go through a compounded initiation process to die multiple ways consistently over this timeline, so that we can hold and experience and express alongside people as they're walking their, I call it their shadowscape, the way that they walk alongside their shadow and the parts of them that they're afraid to face, so walking in the darkness. So as I listen into that initiation process and the resilience that it required within me, it feels like every time I cast out what it is that I want to move towards, or what I'm listening that I'm supposed to lean towards, I feel like the universe populates a universal obstacle course. It's like if I'm here and I want to go there, it populates this universal obstacle course. And inside of that obstacle course, I will be met with every part of me that is not ready to hold that frequency or that energy. It is going to bring up the walls, the monsters, the shadow, the fear, the joy, the bliss of the experience of the self that's being created to be able to walk that path. And so when I listen to the calling to be a space holder for space holders, a healer for healers, to walk alongside that, I cast out a big net and I asked for a big obstacle course. And so as I'm developing within me the strength to meet that course, the strength to meet each part of the pathway as it arises, it teaches me and builds within me what's needed next. And so I think of it like this journey of engagement and willingness to participate, willingness to surrender and to die every single day to the part of me that thinks it understands or knows what it's doing. So it's that constant identity shift and that constant ego recognition, because ego is simply our way of identifying ourselves in the now moment, right? So as we open ourselves to our identification, if we can stay open to that identity changing consistently over time, then we don't grasp on to the parts that are really beautiful. We don't grasp on to the parts that are really painful. We get to walk hand in hand with both of those as we expand our capacity to walk with more.
So the wound of the wounded healer for you is not a life experience, a challenging life experience. The wound of the wounded healer is the constant experience of holding death and vitality, death. Actually, what comes to me is death in vitality and vitality in death.
I think they walk hand in hand, and we like to lean towards the light because it feels better. And we assume that healing means the feel good part of healing, but the process of healing is really uncomfortable, and it keeps us connected to our bodies and our divinity at the same time. I think so many people want to separate from the body as an act of ascension, to separate themselves from the body's experience here on earth. And I had for years meditated on the conversation of why the body? Why is the body so slow? Why is the body this thing? Why are we gifted a body on this plane of existence? What is it for? And I meditated and prayed on that for years as I was working on people. And then one day it just poured through my system. And it was like the body is the process of integration. You cannot integrate anything until it's gone through the body's experience. So anything we think we know on the spiritual plane or the energy plane that has not walked itself through the body's experience is not really known. It's known about.
I echo so much with that.
Mm-hmm. And so I think the wounded healer energy is that beautiful conversation consistently to stay present with the body through its experience here.
Yeah. And even when it is so many near death experience, because the death itself, in some way, when we look at it energetically and mentally, is a mental perception. So as healer to healer, we do know that, like, I cannot count how many times I've died in this body, different types of death, where all they were, I would say, doing their meaning, their essence, the ritual of that intimate death that I could feel myself collapsing into my being, was to make a mark of a transition and create space for something much bigger to come in, even if that bigger thing was new level of clarity. Many times we're saying, oh, something big is coming, and we're expecting, like a marriage or $1 million or, like a child or something. But sometimes the big thing that comes that needs you to die within you is a whole new perception about life and living and who you are and what is possible.
And I think that there's two pieces here that I feel like are really important. The part where we cast an energetic hope that the thing that we are receiving is going to be something outside of us. That conversation that we consistently have, like the child, the money, the thing, when really it's our capacity to hold more within us that opens us up to anything in the third dimension. And then the other piece of that is that if the body is the only relationship that we have for our entire existence here that cannot be severed in actuality, then why would that not be your most treasured asset and relationship in your entire world? Why would we not treat the body as the most precious gift we've ever been given if it is the only one that will walk with us completely to the end? And I think that the warring within ourselves, in our minds and our energy bodies and our physical bodies, is the process of healing that we're meant to encounter here. And then how that affects and mirrors and holographs itself out into the world. We're seeing it in collective warring. We're seeing it in collective political landscapes. We're seeing it within cultures. We're seeing it, this externalized inner warring. If we had really come into deep union with ourselves, deep intimacy with our energy body and our physical body, the way we would encounter the world would heal, I think, in a second, if that was healed within us. And so we so often want to change the external circumstances or the circumstantial power of what's happening, instead of like realign the union within us so that we can imprint the frequency of that here on this planet. And I think that there's a lot of language around stuff like ascension or new earth or all these different stuff. And what I really think it means is like a union of the inner selves healed because we're willing to face the warring within so that it can transform without.
I can feel your wording, your transmission. I can feel this a vision of you and of yours through that.
I had this vision sitting at the ocean as I like merged myself in the ocean in the dark as I was listening because I felt like I needed a saltwater transmission. And I was sitting there, I saw myself riding on the back of my dragon. And we were sitting there calling through the ethers, through the dimensions, all of the ones ready and willing to take up arms within the context of our lived world here. And I just saw like all of these riders on dragons coming through the collective, and that's symbology of coming in to affect the change and unionizing that multidimensional experience with the physical experience. And I just saw them pouring down from the skies, and all of these leaves started dropping down into the ocean right around me in the middle of the night, and they started swirling around. And then all of a sudden I just felt this pulse through the water. It's like a calling and a call out to other dimensional experiences to come in and start to affect the change that we need here. So I think that the disruption that we're experiencing on the physical plane in our bodies and in our collective is there to become one of those death initiations, because death is simply rebirth on the other side, you know?
Yeah, in space creating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for such a beautiful conversation, for bringing your light, for bringing your wisdom. I feel that this is just the tip of a toe, the richness and the wholeness that you're holding. I feel when I'm listening to you, I feel that you hold a certain map that you walked through in your life.
Yeah. I think that's why I hand people tools in ritual or hand people ingredients in ritual, because I'm like, you can try every one of these tools that I've ever put on. I can show you how to utilize it, how to wield it. And also, you have to be willing and able to listen to your yeses and your nos of which ones match you, and then which ones you can take up and practice with. because I can hand you every tool I've ever existed with, or tools that have been handed to me through all these different lineages. But if you don't practice them, if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, if you're not willing to discern, and if you're not willing to be the one who learns to create mastery within the context of any tool, you're just being handed a bunch of stuff that won't be utilized, and it won't actually have the potency. So I think when people can uniquely identify and work with the tools, then there's a relationship that's built there that is more potent than simply traditional measures. And I do think that traditional measures are really powerful, and they've worked for a long period of time. But I do think that we're also at a time where nothing we've ever utilized is being met with a world we've never seen. And I think there's a new story needing to be had, and one that we don't necessarily have a map to. And so if we can't build from the place of no thing, from the womb of no thing, from pure potentiality, to call in what we've never seen or never done, like, I think there's a conversation there that is still yet to be had, of opening ourselves up to whatever is meant to come through next. And that's where that bridging is that I think I'm holding right now, is like, what is that womb of no thing, pure potentiality of the healing measures that are meant to come in now, while working with the tools that we've known so far.
Yeah. I hear within me that this is a calling to be real. Are you willing to be real? Because there's an idea, we can say, that being real is really showing up in this world, in what we know, and being authentic and so on. And then at the same time, in this conversation, in the light of this conversation, being real is taking what there is and creating the new from the unknown out of it, by you really engaging in it, making it yours, by that making it real.
I think it's that merging of the like what's available and the yes and conversation, right? Right?
Yes.
We've got this point where it's like, this is what we know so far, and there is so much we have yet to know. If we look back on any timeline, we can see that societies or cultures think they've come to know the end of their knowingness, and are consistently reformatted, and changed, And so if we hold that open-handed yes and space, we create and we can work with what is, while holding the potentiality of what's coming next.
Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit of a generic way to say things. But I feel that one of the diseases of spirituality is that there is so much respect, could be a word for it, but it's that people relay on what they have received through religion, through tradition, through lineages. And one of the things that they are missing is that they are part of this lineage. So the generation that will come forth will have them in their lineage.
Yeah.
But most of the spiritual practices, the practitioners, are not able to see themselves in this level of sovereignty and this level of responsibility that is saying, I've received all of that until now to my system, because my grandmothers and grandfathers in this spiritual lineage walked with full presence. I've received all of that to learn, to transform, to embody, and then to lead for the next generation, because there's a future being created in every single moment. And there is this new reality that is part of my responsibility for it to come or not. It's like most of the practitioners are taking themselves out of the equation of how meaningful they are. They take the Bible as a sentence with a point at the end. They take the yoga tradition as a sentence with a point at the end. And an art is to know how to continue it without ignoring it, destroying it, turning your back to it, but really continuing it and allowing it to unfold through you for the creation.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on this. I think there's two diseases that I have seen so often. Is one is a lock-in to old measures and traditions that keep us in one cycle of repetitive movement, and then the other one is to completely disassociate from all tradition or all version of past selves or past things, and separate from the body itself, to think that the higher mind means to be only spirit led without a body connected at all. We've seen the body demonized as bad or wrong in a lot of ways, instead of figuring out what does it mean to have this conversation between the pulling forward what's really necessary along the path, while then opening to what's unfolding within the path, and not thinking that something 3,000 years ago is the only opening to the end of that conversation. And then we're utilizing these old traditions, which are beautiful and have so much wisdom and lineage. But when I'm working with my Pacos in Peru, they're always opening to the next. They're always saying, like, it is meant to now go out into the world and open its arms to the next conversation, which is a really scary thing for people. I think it's very.
It is. Once you understand the power of spirituality, the power of ritual, the power of healing, the power of transformation, you understand how it is shaking your body. It is. It is
And it
really
requires that level of
terrifying.
self-responsibility that you're talking about. And
Yes,
so few of us want to take responsibility for what we hear, what we see, and what is our job to interact with. We don't want to be the main character in our storyline. We want to be a secondary character in another person's storyline because it's safer. So a lot of times when we go under the leaders of any group, whether it's a religious group or even a political group or anything, it's so that we don't have to make those decisions. Part of it is a safety measure so that we can say, like, well, I can scapegoat out if something goes wrong to something else, instead of saying, like, I'm here to listen and participate and get to know my failures and get to know my wounding and my power simultaneously as I walk with it, and
mhm.
learn how to wield myself within
Yeah,
the context of this co-creation, instead of being like, well, I'm just going victim to this creation, or I'm going to become the persecutor of this creation, or I'm going to become the rescuer of this creation. I don't think that healers are meant to be rescuers.
I agree. I
And I
agree.
think that
Even in
we
the
get stuck
wording
in that
itself.
drama triangle.
Yeah, even in the wording itself, many times I hear healers, my students are saying, I'm here to help. Really? Why?
Hmm.
To help, even to help the planet.
Hmm.
I wonder if the planet needs help, or maybe all she needs, if at all, is attention and care
Hmm.
and communion and
Yeah.
love.
I think of, like, what does intimacy look like when it comes to me and encountering the divinity within me, and the encountering the earth and humanity. If I was building a life based off of intimacy, connection, listening, and aligned action because of those things, then I'm walking in union with my femininity, with my masculinity, with the androgyny of those spaces kind of moving together as they move through expression. And I'm getting to say, like, what is it within me that encounters whatever is within you? And what does that magic create? And then what expression comes through because we were able to take that moment and, like, intertwine and dance our energies together. As a healer, I think of being one who walks alongside and says, like, I know it's dark in here, but I can see in the dark. I trust the darkness here. And I can say, like, get back up. You got this. You have to develop the strength within you to pick yourself back up. And I can sit there and say, like, yeah, try this, try this. I don't know, but you have to be the one to wield yourself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm,
Thank you for this beautiful conversation.
thank you.
I'm happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy that people can be exposed a little bit to those questions mark that were offered and suggested here in this conversation, and try them on. Try them. Bless you, my dear.
Thank you so much.